Right, it's time now for Focus, and today we're putting Pakistan's relationship with China under the microscope. The two countries have been getting closer, while Pakistan's relations with the US have soured. As part of an ambitious project called the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, Beijing is investing tens of billions of dollars in Pakistan. But which nation stands to gain the most? This report from our team in Islamabad.
A Mandarin lesson for Pakistanis is a common scene these days. The country is in the midst of a new Chinese revolution. In this classroom, some dream of a master's degree in China, others of a better job in Pakistan.
Certainly, the people and the younger lot, the children should be able to learn this language so that they are able to talk and interact with the Chinese who will be around. And I think in due course of time, this Chinese should be taught in the schools as well.
A new language for a new project. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, also known as CPEC, is the talk on the town here. A total of more than 100 billion euros will be partially lent and partially invested by China. The agreement is simple. For the Pakistanis, it's a way to save their troubled economy and enhance economic growth. While for the Chinese, it's an exclusive access to the Pakistani market and also an especially privileged route to the warm waters of the Indian Ocean through the Pakistani ports of Karachi and Gwadar. The port in Gwadar is already in the control of a Chinese state-owned company. Propaganda videos like this one are frequently aired on local media. A vast network of highways is yet to be built. The Pakistani government says the project will provide 700,000 jobs for citizens, but little is known about how this will be achieved. As a sign of the growing influence of Beijing, a Mandarin language newspaper is now published from Islamabad.
Here we have a favorable policies for the Chinese companies to do business here if we compare with the other foreign countries. And probably we can say that every year we will see the Chinese companies and Chinese people double their number, double their presence in Pakistan.
But there's one major problem. Much of the project will run through Balochistan, the poorest province in the country, that's also in the midst of an ongoing insurgency. The Baloch nationals are fighting a guerrilla war against the Pakistani authorities, and attacks on CPEC workers are frequent. Mohammed's son was on a bridge with 7 other workers from this village when they got attacked.
They lined them up and shot them. Workers pleaded for mercy, saying instead of killing us, burn the vehicles, damage the property, let us go, we'll never come and work here again. But they didn't listen. They gave them just enough time to recite a last prayer.
The separatists feel they will be marginalized by this project.
The entire world is watching the CPEC project, but here our workers are risking their lives. It's now a matter of life and death, because the separatists are constantly attacking.
And it's not only about the insurgency-hit province. Many observers throughout Pakistan are also suspicious about the intentions of the new ally. Jobs may be an attraction for now, but there's no guarantee China will remain friendly to Pakistan once it controls a major part of its economy. According to some experts, it's a modern form of colonialism.
Now that the United States has moved away from us and towards India, we have no choice but to go towards China. That kind of thinking and that level of abject dependence can be disastrous for a country.
As Pakistan inches closer to China, the country continues to export millions of cars, laptops, and other electronic gadgets to Pakistan. Last year, 10 billion euros of Chinese products were sold in Pakistan, which many say is already destroying the local economy.
For more on this, I'm now joined on set by Olivier Guillard. He's Asia Director at France's Institute of International and Strategic Relations. Hello, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Could we just start off by rewinding a little bit? How did this idea come about for Pakistan and China to have such an ambitious project? When does it date back to?
But if we take a bit look at what was the case a few years ago, I mean, this is a long bilateral story between these two countries. There are two real major Asian allies for decades, if not for half a century, if more. And at the moment, we have a country, Pakistan, that is very in the dark side of the international community. No one wants to go there. There is an internal security, terrorism, radicalization, Pakistani Taliban, pretty complicated game as well played by the Pakistan in Afghanistan, tensions with India. Who wants to go and move to this country? No one. Specifically, European companies or North American companies are no longer willing to go there.
So why is China willing then, considering the security considerations and corruption?
Because Pakistan is a neighbor, a very important neighbor. China has very complicated relations with India. Pakistan has very complicated, to say the least, relations with India. It creates some bridges and bounds between the two countries. And by the way, this is a market. Pakistan is 200 million people, most of them living much below the poverty line. But still, this is a market with a good governance, with a state of peace and not a state of war, would be in a position to do something really significant. So it could be an economic situation that could benefit China, obviously. But still, at the moment, there are some problems with security. That's the case. However, Pakistan will benefit from this huge investment in the short term and in the long term.
It's getting roads, it's getting highways, ports.
It's electricity as well, it's power. Without any power, you cannot get access to electricity, to water. I mean, it's a country where most of the people are living in the countryside. So agriculture is water, then electricity. Only China at the moment is willing to provide the money to modernize infrastructure. So it's a major. Of course, China wants to benefit from that. The benefits, if it's not today, it should be tomorrow in economic terms, but in diplomatic and political terms, it's maybe more important for China. China wants to be in Asia, it's already the case, the power that is supposed to eventually dictate terms softly or less softly in the long term, but still, it needs to rely on allies. Pakistan is a powerful ally on that. And then when China provides assistance to Pakistan, Pakistan provides assistance to China in different way. By, for instance, being close to Beijing when it's come to talk about Tibet, about Taiwan, about human rights. Pakistan can count on China for different things, and on the other side, Beijing knows that Pakistan is there to provide any kind of assistance whenever needed in the region.
At what price, though? We heard in the report that there are people suspicious of China's motives. Do they have reason to be, do you think?
Would you invest $50 billion without thinking that tomorrow you need to get some dividends of that? Of course not. But China is able to provide that sort of money, waiting eventually for any kind of different type of dividends. But of course, it's not for free. It's not for free, but I think it's at the moment a pretty reasonable bet for the two countries. Okay. Tomorrow, Islamabad should be closer to Beijing when they need to be on the same path on any kind of subject. So we can assess that in the short-term future, Pakistan will be closer and closer to Beijing, specifically, as mentioned your colleague a few minutes ago, in the context where the United States, that is supposed to be the major non-Asian ally of Pakistan, in the current context, things are so different. So at the moment, Pakistan has to find another nice and powerful friend. It can only
so in a way, it doesn't have a choice.
Absolutely. They cannot count on India for obvious reasons. Japan has a pretty complicated relationship with this country that is seen as unstable, with a pretty bad name, a reputation being, you mentioned corruption, to say the least, but there are many other problems in this country, so they can only rely on China. That's the deal. And it's probably worse as well for Beijing to invest such a huge amount of money. It could create eventually some stability, probably in this country. If there is stability and work going to the young, they may be less tempted to listen to the dark voice of a radicalized group So that would eventually lead to less tension, less insecurity. Then this country could get more stable and attractive.
I understand that Chinese investors own a good chunk of the Pakistan Stock Exchange, about 40%, I was reading. What does that mean exactly?
That means that when you are a Chinese company, when you are a Chinese representative, you have a word even nowadays in the Pakistani economy. And I see it as a major investment for them for tomorrow. When this country eventually would become more stable, once again, it's a huge market. It's probably one of the 5th or 6th largest market eventually, if it is able to stabilize, and when the country, most of the population is able to get out of the abject poverty. So it's for the future. It's I think a quite reasonable and clever bet for Beijing. It's a huge one, but Beijing can afford to invest that sort of billions of dollars in this country.
You say when it stabilizes, there's Taliban, but also the security issues covered in our report. How much of an issue do you think that is for this project, the CPEC?
This is a very important dimension in this bilateral project. The Chinese said to, let's say, 7 years ago, when they were talking very strongly about this project, they say it's obvious that in case we agree to invest such a huge amount of money, you need to provide at least things, the workforce, the lands, and the stability and the security. If you are unable to make sure right now that 99% of the incident would be eventually, if you cannot deal with it, we even don't invest $2 in your country. So the Pakistani army, the Pakistani police, they have already budgeted, if I may say, their assistance to that. So it has been taken into account.
So they have more of an incentive now.
Yeah, but still, it will be a problem one way or another on all along this huge and complicated, ambitious project.
All right, I'm afraid we ran out of time. Thank you very much, Olivier Guillard, for coming in.